One of the pivotal decisions you'll make for your business is the CRM that you choose. De-risk this process by understanding how a CRM powers efficiency. Let's talk about it on today's episode of Closing Time. Thanks for tuning into Closing Time, the show for go-to-market leaders. I'm Val Riley, head of marketing for Unbounce, Insightly, and LeadsRx. Today, I am joined by Vanessa Hunt. She is a CRM consultant with over 20 years of experience in this category. Vanessa, thanks so much for coming back and visiting with us.
Thank you very much. Yeah, lovely to be back again. And you're showing my age there.
I do love speaking with you, Vanessa, because I feel like you have such a unique perspective. You know, we're talking about CRM day in and day out here because we work for a CRM, but you're out there fighting the good fight, working with businesses, really hands-on, rolling up your sleeves with multiple CRMs. So your perspective is super valuable to us.
Thanks very much. Yeah, it's a really exciting place to be working.
All right. So what are you seeing right now as the main issues that people are having with CRM selection and implementation?
I think in some ways the problems haven't really changed since 20 years ago, because if anything, it's the technology is going really, really fast. The development, the speed that we see new features and functionality coming out is amazing. But unfortunately, people still only have a certain capacity to be able to adopt new technology. And it's almost like a lot of companies are running even leaner than before. You know, we've seen a lot of redundancies recently in the software space, especially. And so those teams are much smaller. They're trying to do business as usual. But in addition to that, they're also trying to implement, really strategic, exciting projects around AI and CRM. And I just feel that, resource wise, we're kind of more stretched than before. But obviously that gives us great opportunities to make massive improvements if we can make our implementation successful.
I like that you note how old this category is, but that there's still innovation happening in this category. What do you say when people say, "Oh, CRM, that's just old stodgy technology"?
I think what's really amazing is, looking back right at the start of my CRM career, it was revolutionary to be adding, new tasks and activities to a CRM. And what we're seeing now is that technology and AI are helping us do that even faster. We are getting access to scripts and recordings that are helping surface, the insights and the things that we might say first to a customer. And so it's taking a lot of the legwork, if you like, out of putting the data in. And we truly are starting to see the value that those CRMs, promised us 20 years ago. But now, I think that really is realistic to know that we're saving time, we are being more productive, and technology is supporting us to do the things, that only humans can do.
So it's not your grandfather's CRM. That's what I'm hearing.
No, definitely not. No, definitely always learning every day. We're learning new things, and so again, as my role as a consultant, you're often trying to distill and find the things that are going to make them a massive difference to customers, rather than them finding it themselves. They just haven't got the time to absorb all of those new communications and new functionality that's being brought out every day.
That's very true. We see that in our daily practice, so it's nice to hear you echo that. Insightly recently commissioned a research report. We partnered with an organization, a research firm called Ascend2, and that firm, they interviewed GTM professionals about CRM selection. There was one really interesting data point that said 86% of fully adopted CRMs are seen as a good fit. But when a CRM is only partially adopted, that satisfaction ranking drops by, more than 20 points. So it seems pretty obvious, but what's that data point telling us about what the implementation and adoption really means for CRM?
I think it really comes back to whether people were clear on their objectives and requirements of the value that a CRM might bring. And so often when you don't see, really high figures in those sort of metrics, it could be that people knew they needed a CRM, but they didn't really know why. And so that clarity of why a particular CRM should win over another one is a bit more blurred. When you have really clear requirements, you already have things that you know you want to measure, whether that's improvements in customer satisfaction, the rate in which deals are moving through your pipeline, the hit rates of your marketing emails. All those things are really clear measures. But if you don't know what you're measuring from the outset, I think somebody famous said that, then you can't really see whether you're improving or not. And if you don't feel that improvement and feel those benefits in your daily role, you're going to be a bit more nonplussed about it. People don't get particularly excited about using Word. It just works. But with CRM, I think because it's another piece of technology on top of what you're already using as standard, I think it's really important to know, why you're introducing it from a company perspective as well, not just, your team and your part of the world.
Yeah, it makes a lot of sense. And that really does add up with what that statistic is telling us. So one thing we hear a lot is speed of implementation and time to value. So folks are looking at this like huge piece of software and they're investing in it and they want to know, how soon are we going to see value? But we want to make sure they're not rushing through the key details. How does that show up in the real world in your work?
I think, it's like in the olden days, 20 years ago, it was very much around, waterfall projects where you would be planning for months and months until you actually implemented the CRM in full. Certainly nowadays, people are working in a more agile way, not necessarily using an agile methodology, but trying to see small benefits for each team right from the outset. And so that's kind of harder in a way because you have to strip out all of the things that you could do and would like to do and really focus on, well, what can we do in the next 10 days? What can we do in the next 30 days? But if you do it that way, then often users are going to start seeing benefits that even you didn't see from the outset, and help drive, how the system should be improved for them going forward. So I think allowing, having maybe a lower threshold in terms of adoption from the outset and the amount of functionality that you're covering actually, helps you get that maturity, get the adoption so that you can then do the more exciting things later. But I think the more that you're holding off, there's an opportunity cost in that. Every kind of month or quarter of delay is actually costing you efficiencies that you could probably have had by implementing the CRM first, with a much smaller amount of features for people to adopt. So it might just be things like activity tracking, collaboration in terms of your email tracking, using it, for marketing and campaign management. And those are just, quite standard things really that most organizations would be doing. But if you didn't do those and you've been living out of an Excel spreadsheet, those things in themselves can have a massive impact, just within a quarter, of the year.
I imagine too that type of process where we're doing sort of like a minimum viable product where we're saying, okay, we're going to start using these features and then we're going to add these and then these almost plays to the human nature element that you mentioned earlier, meaning that you don't have to learn to use every single button that's on the left side of the CRM or every single menu item in week one. Let's just start with these. So it almost allows you to phase training in a way that maybe doesn't seem so overwhelming to users.
Yeah. And I think, again, many years ago, I'd be shipped across, to Europe to do a training course, a 2 or 3 day training course, even for sales team members. And now it's much more about, let's do an hour, as a prerequisite. Let's do a little bit of e-learning. Let's follow that up with, a couple of hourly sessions every day. So sort of smaller, regular sessions, again, are much more palatable in terms of your time and availability, but equally just your capacity to learn. So yeah, small and modular training is definitely the way to go, I think.
Thanks for pointing that out, the capacity to learn, because people are doing their jobs and have many other things going on. And so they might not have the mind share to, spend 8 hours in 1 week learning this new system. But, will they watch a 30-minute video or attend a small session and then start using it and then practice? Yes, they probably will. So I think sometimes on paper, our expectations of people's learning capacity might not really match the real world.
No, absolutely not. Yeah. And I think also, people get what, a lot of people are very conscientious. They don't want to feel that they've missed out, that they haven't done as much as they need to. So there is certainly a fear factor that you don't necessarily get with a younger audience. With children, they'll try anything. But as adults, trying to say to people, don't worry about that bit, we're going to cover that later. Actually people do worry. And so, again, back to the design of the system, you need to try and trim it back as far as you can, and not overwhelm them in the same way that you do with web design. It's very much about designing something that looks comfortable as well.
You touched on this a little bit, but I want to go back. If there were a handful of vital features that you would say, okay, in our initial implementation or in our first iteration or our first sprint, we're going to make sure that these couple of features are definitely in the hands of the teams. What would you say those are?
Yeah, I think definitely Outlook integration or Gmail, whatever your email client is, that's definitely a must, because one of the key drivers usually for CRM is that collaboration across teams and knowing that you're not duplicating effort. So that's one of the first things. It has to work really well and be straightforward. I think just simple things like having, clear pipeline stages, making sure that your sales process is easy to understand, shows you some visual clues or cues as to data that's needed or missing, alerting you. And again, none of it's particularly rocket science, but, having those alerts, for following up on tasks, it just helps instilling that kind of discipline that helps you also feel secure in your CRM, that you don't have to remember everything. Your CRM is going to show you, your CRM will notify you, and it's just layering that kind of richer information that joins all of the records and connections together that you just don't get in a simple spreadsheet that's very flat and one-dimensional. So I think just that interconnection of the data and the structure, and then that obviously lends itself to better reporting. So instantly, you should be getting insights that you, again, didn't have before if you didn't have a CRM.
Yeah, that's just where the value really starts to drive home. So back to that report, there was another data point that really stood out to me. It showed that when folks were extremely satisfied, which is a pretty strong word, extremely satisfied with their CRM, they are 5 times more likely to see strong efficiency gains and 4 times more likely to report significant revenue growth, which is, what we're all after. So if you had to say, what would be the pathway to extremely satisfied? Because that the revenue growth and the efficiency gains, that's valuable stuff. So how can we get CRM purchasers to that level where they're extremely satisfied?
I think the key thing again is having reasonable but ambitious expectations. So knowing what, I think really being clear about what the key drivers are for your own business and what you're really trying to achieve. That's one thing that you have to have before you start, because a lot of businesses will say, well, I want a new CRM because I want to generate new business. Okay. Actually, a lot of business can be, brought from the customers that you already have. So one of the key things that, I like looking at with customers is which of your customers is already, a fantastic customer, which are the customers that you maybe are serving, but, it's probably better not to, because, you've moved on in terms of your strategy. So actually just understanding who your customers are, that's one of the first things that your CRM will provide you with. Once you start understanding that, then okay, well, why were we successful with that customer? What should we be doing more of? And it isn't necessarily about doing lots of new lead generation. It may be more about providing better customer service. It may be about having regular touch points. How do you expand, the growth of your revenue with those clients that you already have? And so, so being ultra satisfied, I guess it's very personal as well. It might be for one person that they don't get nagged by everybody in the team and chased for every little bit of information. For someone else, it might be, I just want to be on the road more, speaking to customers more and having more customer meetings. So everybody's measuring it in a different way. So it is very subjective. But ultimately, if you have happy users who are doing, more of the things that they know they should be doing and enjoy, then naturally you get these efficiencies, which naturally help you drive more revenue because you can spend time on the things that are most important. So I think, yeah, I guess it also points to the fact that you need a custom approach. One CRM implementation is not the same as another because teams are different. Responsibilities of those teams are different, and so an implementation for one group of 10 people might be very, very different to another group in another sector of 10 users. So I think understanding that it's personal and understanding that everybody has personal motivations, and that's really what will then help you satisfy those people to get the best out of the CRM. That's a long answer to a short question. Sorry.
No, it's very thoughtful though, and it really does resonate. Let's talk a little bit about budgets. I think a lot of companies are looking realistically at their budgets. One data point that we saw in the report was that sales teams that fully adopt their CRM are 2 times more likely to report a major boost in sales, and the difference was pretty extreme. With that in mind, it can be tempting to move quickly, but you're seeing businesses being realistic about what they can and can't afford, and afford in terms of like what systems we can afford to buy, and then how much time and effort and energy can we afford to get into this first iteration of a CRM. So am I zeroing in on the right thing?
Yeah, I think sometimes people think they've got to have everything right from day one, and sometimes that is best for that company. But equally, you can start small. Like we said, seeing those sort of small benefits to start with, and then gradually expanding, the software that you're using. So a lot of my clients will start with very much focused on sales pipeline, and then they might progress to using marketing because they now understand their customers and now they know which customers they'd like to target next. Other organizations might be focusing on customer service first, because again, they're trying to keep the customers that they already have by providing excellent service. And then they move backwards and go for pipeline and then marketing next. So you can absolutely break up that kind of core functionality. But I guess the other ways that you might save, because if you've got quite a small company, actually you might need all of those at the same time. So ways that you might look to reduce your total cost of ownership for your software are, can you commit for longer? So just like telephone contracts, the longer you can commit and sign up for, the better. Can you include more users from the outset? So again, a lot of software companies will be happier if you're using more products and using more products with more people in your team. So if you can promise to adopt it from a wider perspective, then there may be discounts or offers that apply. But I think ultimately, like when people say to me, "Oh, CRM's expensive," if you look at an hour of your time and what you can do in an hour or in a day, and you say, "Am I prepared to pay?" I might buy my team, a free pizza, once a month. Actually, could that money, go to providing better software that allows you to do your work better? You can still have pizza as well, of course, but ultimately, there should be. The software that you buy should be helping you. I have software that I use for process design, and every month I think, God, it cost me quite a lot for this software. But the moment that I need it, it saves me so much time. So looking at how frequently people need the software, the impact of it when they can use it, and then weighing up, am I getting enough bang for my buck? But that does mean that you have to think about, what do I expect users to be doing in the system? Are they regular users? And not everybody needs a license. People have to kind of earn their license to use the CRM, and obviously, be able to have an impact on revenue or cost savings as a result.
Right. I think, with any software tool, but specifically CRM, it's, total cost of ownership versus return on investment, right? And like you say, sometimes it's just that it's there and it's ready and it does what I need when I need it. that, certainly fits into the equation when you're thinking about ROI. Vanessa, any final thoughts before we wrap up? Any trends or anything you're seeing as we move into 2026 with CRM?
I suppose it'd be interesting to know, Insightly's or Unbounce's view on AI. And there's obviously a lot of talk about AI. Again, I'm working with smaller organizations where, they're going to be slower adopters, again, just because of the nature of all the other things that are happening in their world. But it feels like AI has become the new CRM. We talked about the internet, the mobile phones changing everything, the internet changing everything. Then it was COVID, and then CRM before COVID. And now it's AI, and I kind of feel like there's this new big bubble, coming. But yeah, it'd just be interesting to know what Insightly's roadmap is from that perspective as well.
Yeah, very timely because we have a Copilot that's launching in the CRM. So those queries that you need, that rather than, having to request a report and put in all your parameters, you just tell the Copilot, hey, can you tell me the top 10 deals that are most likely to close this month? And out shoots your answer. It's a really exciting time to be in CRM through that lens, because so many of the things that required a lot of work and some drudgery are now going to be fast tracked so much more quickly with this Copilot. And then, of course, we also have some additional AI features in the platform where you could summarize an email very easily using AI, or respond to an email and get the AI to write a response for you very quickly. So, little places where we're seeing a lot of value and a lot of ways to just reduce the drudgery of using a CRM is where Insightly is looking to drop AI in. Is that what you're seeing in the market?
Yeah, and I think that's also one thing I would say, sort of going back to requirements, is choosing CRM is also about choosing a company that's on the same roadmap as you. So, do your goals and aspirations align with what a company is doing? And so obviously, everybody's got an AI co-pilot and agents, coming down the line. And I think that is exciting, even for me, the things that you're used to, that they're out there, but actually when you start seeing people use it and having that little piece of excitement when their first draft email is written for them, and just allowing them again more time to customize it and personalize it rather than writing out the same standard things. So yeah, it's definitely an area that I'm excited about. And I don't know what's going to be next though.
Yeah, I think we'll have a lot to chew on with AI for the next couple of years. So many advances that we'll likely see. So really, it is an exciting industry. I know you have a front row seat to it. So I really appreciate you joining us on this episode.
Thank you very much. Yeah, it's been lovely to see you again. Thank you.
The report that we referenced, we're going to link that in the show notes. Vanessa, if folks want to learn more from you or get some insights from you and your expertise, what's the best way to reach you?
Like everybody else, probably, I'm on LinkedIn. So yeah, very happy to connect on LinkedIn. I do have a website, which is vanessahunt.co.uk. But yeah, feel free to drop me a note on LinkedIn, and I can help you either select a CRM or maybe just have a chat about CRM in general. Thanks very much.
Thank you. And thanks to all of you for tuning in. Remember, you can get this episode and every episode of Closing Time delivered to your inbox. Just click the link in the show notes. We'll see you next week.